What is up, everybody? This is Recap Rewind. I'm J-Lag.
And I'm NB.
And this episode is recapping and reviewing Riverdale Season 6, Episode 12, and it's called Chapter 107, The Fog.
Ooh, and don't forget, guys, stick around for the end of the podcast. We're gonna go through our recap roundups, your recap roundups. We got so many roundups from you guys this week. I'm so excited to get through them all. Let's get into the episode, The Fog.
And as always, to our continuing listeners and our brand new ones, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Let's get into this episode. Yeah, let's do this.
Let's do it. What were your thoughts?
I thought this episode was so good. I thought it was really, really well done. I think we got so many conversations that we were fucking waiting for literally seasons at this point.
Yeah.
So I was just really happy to see it all kind of come together this episode. And it kind of, like, as much as it was like a weird like fog storyline, I was like, it makes sense as to why they had to sit down and like sit with each other's problems together and talk about them. Like, when else do they ever get that opportunity? Otherwise they'd be like out running, doing God knows what. So like they literally got an opportunity to pause and like talk their shit out. And I loved it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Agreed. 100% agreed.
So good.
We had such rich like conversations, like meaningful conversations, you know, that I think should have happened a long time ago. I mean, thank you. We got them now. I think this was the greatest, like, it's such a cool context for it to happen because like the fog is coming, stay inside. I loved it. I thought it was a great episode. It was one of those episodes where when it ended, I was like, that's it. Like, I almost wanted more.
Like, I want more. Yeah, I know. I'm like, let's keep this going.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's having their conversations. Like, let's get to the parents next. Like, fucking, what the fuck's going on with them? Okay, so it starts off with Tabitha, Jughead, and Archie and Betty in the Cooper house. And Archie basically says that he wants to stage a coup to remove Percival from the council. He's like, you know what? We're just going to stage this coup. We're going to have to get everybody involved in this. I will say, I made a note because Tabitha is like, yeah, we got to also talk to Kevin because like he's kind of like on the flip flop right now. And I was like, do you though? Do you? Because he's like a piece of shit. Like, you don't need to talk to Kevin about any of this shit right now. Anyway, so as they're talking, Alice overhears it, and then she goes on to tell Percival the whole thing. Like, you can see her hand close the door, like she obviously was in the house. And I was like, why did you guys hold a secret meeting talking about like overthrowing the council without and, like, knowing where the fuck Alice
lock your
was?
doors?
Like, what's wrong with you? So anyway, she goes to tell Percival, and then it cuts to Percival's shop. She's like tattling on them, and she has this idea that there's this big upcoming like epic fog that's coming in, and that could help slow down the process of them, you know, like overthrowing, and then they can think of another plan, which Percival obviously does by the end of the episode. But anyway, cuts to Pop's diner. Tabitha's watching the news. Alice says that there's this fog that's coming in, and the council has set a curfew so everybody can like stay inside and like don't leave your house. And then like quickly, like obviously people start leaving the diner. Then it cuts to the casino, and Veronica has to close the casino because there's nobody there either. And then it cuts to Betty at the FBI office, and one of her like agents tell her that there's a woman who escaped from the TBK just like she did. And she wants to know if she wants to interview her. And then Betty's like, yeah, please, like, tell me. One thing I will say really quickly, since like this never comes back, why do you think they even mentioned this moment?
I was so confused.
And then like
Very
she's
confused.
like she's at home in the next scene we see her. Like, I was like, oh, what an interesting thing. Like, she's gonna be sitting with this person. Like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But nothing comes.
I know. And I just feel like the TBK, like, I did appreciate how later she does talk about him more with Archie and she opens up about it. But in terms of like him, the TBK, like, I feel like he's just not really important right now. / like he's such a veer off the main storyline that like I don't really care anymore.
Which I feel like as long as they're mentioning it, I guess, from time to time, I think it's okay when he will eventually, because he will eventually come back to the main storyline.
Yeah.
But I didn't know why they needed this because we didn't even get to see it.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to see that story. Like, what is the connection that she has with this woman? Is there a connection? Anyways, Cuts to Tony talking to Kevin. She bumps into him in the school. So he is working at the school still. So how is he still a sheriff? Anyway, I can't even deal with it. But she's talking to Kevin and she asks if he wants to come over for dinner to talk about Anthony's future. And he's like, honestly, like, I don't think that he should be in an environment with a bunch of serpents. And then she turns around.
So like,
yeah, I
bitchy. He was like, did you forget you're a serpent? Like, you should not have a child.
You're not gonna change my mind about that.
I was like,
and how I feel about.
And she came back so hard. I was so happy.
I snapped because I was like, that's what I've been saying. Because she's like, how about we talk about the fact that you cruise and you're fucking dangerous too, and you have your own issues. And I was like, fucking yes.
I love how she was like, I am not hating sexual like activities, but I am hating on the fact that you like danger. And I was like, okay, good. Like she had to like
she had to
create, like the boundary.
Yeah, she had to like say. She's like, cruising's fine, but like you're fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And then she's like, I'll see you at 6. So basically he gets strong-armed into this meeting to have this conversation with both of them. Then it cuts to Thornhill, and Penelope shows up in a nun's outfit, and it's a similar outfit. We've seen this before because she is now working for the Sisters of Quiet Mercy.
Even Cheryl was like, what?
She's like, what the fuck are you doing?
They have like a sister branch in the Himalayas.
Yeah. Literally, it's like a satellite.
Also, like, how did she get to the Himalayas? Like, she doesn't have money. Like, what plane ride did she take?
Yeah, she was like, I travel the world looking for sanctuary. I'm like, you
With
travel
what?
like, people don't travel the world looking for sanctuary. Like, they end up staying like in the States.
But
like,
they do, but they can. But like, she has no money. Like, what is she doing? Like, she's a serial killer. She's probably on like the radar for like
she like
no
away,
fly thing.
Anyway, she comes back as this nun. She works for the Sisters of Quiet Mercy in the Himalayas, and she has this one last weekend to do her like unfinished business before she takes her final vows. So she's there to give her something. It's a surprise. But she's like, first I need a meal and a bath. And Cheryl, obviously, she's like, okay, fine, you're my mom. Like, I'm not gonna send you out back. So come. Cuts to the Pop's diner, and Jughead asks Tabitha if he can go back in time, or she can go back in time to get his hearing back. She was like, and then she says, she's like, I've tried and I can't. Like, that's a fixed point in time. Like, the bomb going off. Like, I'm so sorry, I can't do it. Knowing that now, and then knowing what happens later in the episode, I'm like, damn, like anyway, like,
well, it's interesting because like as he's asking her, like her face is like very weird, like she's giving like weird looks,
right?
So I'm like, okay, there's more. She's not saying something. Like, it was like she's holding something back. Like, what the f is she hiding? You know.
So it was interesting. Anyway, she says that she tried it and it didn't work. Cuts to the Cooper residence, and Betty goes outside, and it's the fog is already here, and she sees a dark figure kind of like standing, and then so she just goes back inside.
She's like, hell no, I'm gonna go back in.
She's like, I'm gonna go inside. And then that's when I wrote down the question, like, what happened to the woman who escaped from the TBK? Like, they didn't even like wrap up the conversation. Like, why? Like, she's suddenly just at home, like about to like have dinner. Like, I don't know.
It was weird.
So then it cuts to the Andrews residence, and Betty comes in through the back, and she's like, there's some weirdo up front. Like, I just wanted to like sneak through the back. And Barchie have like a sexy moment. They're like, let's just stay together.
Well, it was so cute because they're like, all right, so like I guess like we're just like trapped inside these 4 walls
together, and like
all night, nothing. And then the lights go out. It's like, zoom.
Yeah, and they're like,
and he's like, I got candles down. I was like, ooh.
So while they're in bed, she's like, are we dating? Like, what are we doing? And I was like, I thought,
did you know this was gonna get there?
Like with the
that
period
question? Yeah.
No, I didn't know that it was gonna get to that point.
Because to your point too, like I thought they were already dating, and I thought that was a known thing. So I was like,
yeah, like why did you have to say, "Are we dating"? Couldn't you just say like, "So my period's late"? Like, like did you think that he was gonna like leave you at this point? Like, no. So anyway, she says that her period's late.
And she's like, I'm never late.
She's like, I'm never late. And then the lights go out. Then it cuts to Pop's diner, and Tabitha's talking to Pops on the phone. She's like, yeah, don't worry, we'll be okay. And then she hangs up the phone, and Jughead hears her thoughts, and her thoughts are like, what am I going to do when I lose him?
Yeah.
And Jughead's like, you're never going to lose Pops. Like, he'll be fine. Like, he's going to outlive all of us. And Tabitha gets upset that he's reading her mind. She's like, that's an invasion of privacy. Like, you can't do that all the time. And he's like, sorry. I like, it just kind of, it's like a reflex. And then that's when the lights go out and Pops. Then it cuts back to the Andrews residence, and I wrote down, we finally get a scene where Archie talks to her about her time with the TBK.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I think a lot of people were annoyed about in the very beginning of them getting together was like, they're not talking about their trauma. They're not talking about like the stuff that they've gone through together, or like separately even. And so finally we have this moment where Archie talks to her about the well and the time that she was in there.
And like there's a full out cutscene. Like they actually filmed this. So I was like, oh my God. Yeah.
So she was in the well apparently for 2 weeks. And she talks about the night that she gets away. So we find out how she even gets away, which I didn't know that this is what happened, because you assume that like, oh, the FBI found her and like he ran away. But turns out he brings her up from the well and says like, I have like a proposal for you. Like, this is the choice that you have. There was like a dead body on a slab. And he says, if you cut this, like chop up this body with me, then you can leave. If you don't chop up this body, then like you're the next one to die. So she obviously goes and chops up the body with him like standing over her shoulder. So obviously she does it.
Yeah.
And then he just lets her go. And that's like her like deep dark secret.
Yeah.
That she finally tells him. And then he says like to her, like, the world would be more interesting with you in it. Like, you know, the secret that we have now like will bind us. And Archie's so cute, like not really knowing anything about like serial killers and like this like fucking trauma that she's been dealing with. He's like, you had to do what you had to do to survive. Like, it has nothing to do with like you being a dark person. And he has a moment too when he's like, you know, after everything that happened, I went to the army. I could sometimes wonder, like, why did I end up back in Riverdale as well?
It was so beautiful.
And he's like, the reason I did is because, like, I want to raise a family here. And
he said something about, like, the soul of Riverdale. Like, he's like, I could have picked up, I could have gone here, I could have gone there. Like, I could have moved away and, like, forgotten about this town. Yeah. But he's like, I keep coming back to, like, what is the soul of this town and, like, Riverdale and, like, what it means. I was like, dude, like they're having such beautiful conversations. And like, look, at the end of the day, I know this show started out with Barchie, but when you look at Barchie and like who they really are as individuals, they are so alike. Like they really are at like the core of like who they are and like what really matters to them. Yeah. It's like they are aligned in that way. You can't deny that. Yeah. And like you just see it in this scene like unfolding. And it was so beautiful. Like they're having this like really like adult intimate conversation. Yeah.
It was really, really good. Really great writing across the board, I think, this episode.
It was, yeah.
Then it cuts to the casino. Veronica's sitting at the casino by herself.
Hornified. She was like, I'm getting the D this episode. No,
you know what's really sad? Like Veronica has like no friends. Like she doesn't hang out with like no friends.
Like her only friend is the guy on the speaker. She's like, where are all my people? They're going here.
And then she sent him home too. So like she's alone in this fucking gigantic casino. So she's drinking by herself, and Reggie comes in. Like he's like, I'm just grabbing the last of my stuff. Like I'm out. And then she says like, you know, the fog's coming through. Like maybe you should just stick around. And he's like, yeah, it's like a Stephen King movie out there. So like shout out to the fog. Yeah. And then she says like, stay and drink. Like maybe we can play some like strip poker. Like let's get horny.
Like that escalated
really quickly. And he's like, I'm down.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the power
he's like, I always play regular poker, but I never play strip poker.
Let's do strip poker together. So then it cuts to Pop's diner. And Jughead wants to siphon gas from the car, or from the gas, like, I don't know. He just walks out and he wants to start the generator. So he goes outside. Cool. Cuts back to the casino. One of my favorite scenes, I wrote the most about it because it was so fucking good. It was such a good scene.
I just want to say their chemistry is still there. Because I know sometimes we question it throughout the season because we don't know really in real life, like, are they fucking at this point? They're not together? What's the situation?
Right.
In this episode, like, it came off. Like, there were, I don't know the word for it. It felt like I was almost watching their relationship in real life.
In
almost.
real life.
Kind you know what I mean? Unfolds. Like, their chemistry was like, it was different. And I think the writing lended so nicely to their dynamics episode too. Like, their writing was beautiful. Like, what they were saying was so real.
Yeah.
But the acting, I also felt like brought it to life. So it was, one of my favorite scenes too.
So good.
Yeah.
So basically they're down to like not wearing anything. This is how the scene begins. Like she's not like they're wearing no clothes. And she finally like wins a hand and she's like, you either remove those boxers or you give me a kiss. And he's like, why not like start with one and like do the other? And then she sits on his lap and she like macks him. And then as they're making out, he like is in direct eyes of like so Hiram's portrait. And he's like, can we like move this somewhere else? And she's like, whatever you want, sexy. So they go upstairs. And after they have their sexy times, Veronica says, like, maybe I was a little hasty and that she overreacted with how things went down with them.
She got that good D, and then she was like, wait, I gotta reevaluate like, the situation.
Rewind. I really want to do that. She's like, she does say, like, we're a good match and it might not be too late to start over.
And even he was like down. He's like, I like the way that sounds.
They cheers, and this is when things go downhill. So like the way this scene was written was so good in the sense that like I feel like just generally like when you talk about like, you know, relationships and like getting together with someone and then breaking up with them and then wanting to get back together with them, like you're sitting there as the audience member being like, oh, they're gonna get back together, like Veggie's back on, cool, like they're gonna cut the scene and then we're gonna move on with our lives. But they took it the step further and like got them to talk about shit, and I was like, whoa. So anyway, go.
I did love how Reggie, like, if it wasn't for Reggie, I feel like things wouldn't have changed. Like, she would have kept going on with what, like, how it was going to be.
Yeah.
And sometimes I find that, like, with the secondary characters like Reggie, they always make them sort of like in agreement of what the main storyline or character is saying.
Right.
And so going into this, I really thought he was going to be like, yes, babe, like whatever you want, like we're good.
We're back to normal.
So I literally thought that, and then he doesn't say that. And I was like, oh my God, like he thought for himself and for like paved his own way. And that's something that I feel like doesn't happen a lot. So I did appreciate that a lot too. But
yeah, it was really, really cool to see him like talk back about what was happening between the two of them.
Yeah.
So in this particular part of the scene, they cheers on it, and Reggie says, like, let's get rid of that painting of Hiram. Like, first order of business, let's get rid of that painting. And she was like, okay, like, deal, I'm down. And he says, like, let's do it now or it won't get done. And she's like, what do you mean by that, like, snarky ass comment? And then he goes on to like kind of like unravel essentially, and he's like, I've always felt like second fiddle to Archie, and now I feel second fiddle to your dad, and I'm trying to fill these shoes. And she's like, you think that you're the only person that feels that way? She's like, if I had my like way, I'd be living in New York, working on Wall Street. My father would still be alive, but things don't pan out that way. And then she goes on to say, like, I quoted the whole thing because I thought it was so well done. She says, and need I remind you that I gave my own ultimatum to Archie once upon a time, and he chose Riverdale. We are all someone's consolation prize. And I was like,
okay, but like that doesn't make him feel better.
No, it doesn't, because like it just gets worse and worse. So Reggie then goes on to say, like, okay, so in your ideal world, who's in New York with you? Like, who do you see in New York with you?
And like every single time he said something back, he's like hopeful. Like you can see it in his eyes. He's like, okay, we still got this. If you were in New York, who would be there with you?
Right.
And I'm like, okay, Veronica, what are you gonna say?
Like, now's your chance to say it. And so this is when it gets really fucked up, because she's like, she doesn't say, like, she's like, well, Archie didn't want to come. She's
like, that's a random like it's a moot point.
So
she's
it's a moot point. She's like, Archie didn't want to come, so like that's like the thing. And then she doesn't say Reggie either. And he's like, wow, like all it took for you in this moment was to just say like, Reggie, like it would have been you. You know, like you would have been the
Yeah.
person in my
Yeah.
dreams. And
Dude, I felt
she's
like this combo hit hard. I don't know
it
what
was
it was with their acting, but
yeah, yeah.
I honestly feel like
It's a
I was
very real
looking into their
moment.
relationship and it was like their conversation.
Yeah, that was like heavy shit. It was a really good scene. And she's like, we're just two people in a town in a room, and that's all that matters. And I was like, oh, like not
I
a
was
good
like,
thing to say
sis,
either.
you need to work on your game
Cause like
because
that was a bad thing to
no.
say. No, 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 we do not say
And
that.
even then, I was like,
Yeah.
okay, he's gonna hear that. And he's gonna be like, yeah, let's just like fuck again. But he
Yeah.
doesn't.
But
And
he
again, like he
doesn't.
catches
He
me, and I'm like,
steps
oh my
up.
god, he
Yeah.
steps up again.
So then he goes on to say, it feels like you're creating your parents' dynamic. And she was like, I'm not my mom. And he's like, yeah, you're your dad, you psycho. Like he's like, obviously you're your dad. And but then he goes on to say, like, honestly, I'm kind of doing the same on my end.
Mhm.
Like my dad was like really like put into his work, and my mom like took care of us, and she like always got ignored by my dad. Like it was such a interesting moment because it's such a real conversation that real relationships have. Like it's that trauma that you bring back from your family, and like clearly they haven't healed from it,
But
so like it's affecting them very heavily.
oh, like he's saying the trauma of his upbringing is what's affecting his relationship with Veronica?
Because he's letting her kind of like rule the show because that's how his mom
Oh,
was.
okay, okay.
So like in the same dynamic, like he needs to know how to like be
Control
like
his
stand up for
thing. Yeah.
himself, and she needs to like stop being like her dad. So
Yeah.
it was a very, very cool way to like put that
But in all
on
fairness,
paper.
he's the one that convinced her to go into like a shady business. So like, you know?
Yeah, but at the same time, like it could have been anything. Like I guess they could have come up with any other ideas. They're
Yeah.
just like they live in like this dark world. So like that was the idea. But I think at the end of the day, like he wants to feel like he has some say in something, and he just hasn't this whole time. And it was just like a really anyway, the way that they did it was so, so good.
Well, I think the next line when you say it, that
Yeah.
one made more sense to me because I was like, that's more on brand for their relationship.
So what she ends up saying is, sometimes I wondered if the reason we're such a good match is that we're actually bad in ways that are simpatico. So she's like, yeah, like it's like we're feeding into our own
Yeah,
toxic traits with
exactly.
each other.
Like they're good
And
because they're bad together, essentially.
yes, exactly. Like they're bad, they're vices, and they're bad things that they have in themselves. Like it's just continuing the cycle. And he's like, we got to break this toxic cycle for both our sakes. And I'm like, I can agree with this to a degree, but at the same time, I'm also like, but you can work on these things together. Like they are things that
But
you
they
can
think
try
they
to find a way to.
tried. I think they tried
But
when they tried to steer the casino and the business in the right direction, and they still fucked up. They still veered off into like the
Mhm.
shadiness and like the bad, business things. So like,
Yeah. But I think it's like even deeper than that. I think it's like talking about them as a relationship. She's like, like you have your own shit to deal with, you have your own family shit to deal with, but like you can deal with those things together. But he was like, no, we need to end the cycle
yeah, they
now.
don't really get into
You're
that
toxic,
part.
like we can't. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't
So
really get that far into it because
yeah.
yeah.
But that
And
being said,
ultimately, maybe the answer is that she just doesn't love him. Like that's
right.
ultimately like if she had just said like at the end been like it's never going to work. Like you're
Or
just
it's not enough
I'm
for
not
me.
in love with you.
Or I
I
don't have
th-
it in my heart to like feel that way about you, like whatever it
yeah.
might have been. Yeah, for
Because
sure.
ultimately like we do know like she's not like in love with him. Like
Yeah.
so
It was good. It was a really, really well done scene. He's like, okay, I'm seeing clearly now, and he's like, I'm gonna go. Like I'm just gonna take my
I
stuff and I'm gonna
literally feel like this was their relationship in real life.
leave. Like this is how it all went down.
Yes, because from the outside looking in, it looked like she broke up with him the first time. Like Cammy broke up with Charles the first time. He was fucking devastated. Like the
Mhm.
guy like was MIA on like social media. Like he was gone.
Right.
And then I think they started filming again like this season. And then I think they started like hooking up again because like they're seeing each other. They got back together at Demois, kept posting that they were like seen together in Vancouver.
Right.
And then again, I think she was like, I'm out. I think she like dictated their relationship.
Mm.
She kind of controlled it a bit.
And
you
then he
know?
kind of
And then he kind of like followed along and he was like, oh my God, I'm so like in love with this girl, like whatever. So I feel like a part, like the acting was like so
it
like
was so real.
real. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It was almost like freaky.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to see if like years from now they ever come out and say like, yeah, that scene was basically like playing out, like it was inspired by our real
It's
story.
it's either, yeah, like obviously it's not like exactly like their
Yeah, of
story,
course not.
but I do feel like she calls the shots
Right.
and he kind of follows.
Mhm.
But it's interesting. I wonder, as an actor, is something like this to film, like is it sort of cathartic and is it like kind of like therapeutic to film with that person, or is it like really like weird and
Raw.
traumatizing and like awkward?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's a
Because it's
good
almost like
question.
you're having that dialogue with that person, but
Yeah.
under the context of like your characters.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
your
like less
relationships,
weird.
your
But
character's
then
relationship. Yeah.
yeah, like it's an interesting thing because the whole time I'm watching, I'm like, bro, is this weird for them? Like, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah,
it'd be weird for me. I personally
yeah.
think it'd be really weird
I
for
don't know
me.
how you detach yourself from that
Yeah.
situation. Like it's the same thing
Yeah.
with like Cole and Lily, right? Like they had all
Yeah.
those scenes last season, and I was like, oh boy, like how much of this is like you guys, and how much of this is like Jughead and
Yeah.
Betty?
And like making out and like she was
Yeah,
like half naked, like being like that in front of
yeah.
him again. It's like you haven't done that in so long and
It's
like
so tough.
it's
Yeah, it must be
weird, no? Like it's
really
very
weird for them
weird.
to like try to disconnect that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Anyways, that was
so
our
a little
Reggie
veggie
segue.
moment. So he leaves. She has like a single tear. Like shout out to Cami Mendez and our man Charles. Like
I
he
also
killed it. They
I
both
want to
killed
ask
it.
you this too. I also really did appreciate her makeup. The scene was very like she looked very raw. She didn't look like done up and like
Right.
you know like fake Veronica. There was like a realness to her that I did
Yeah.
notice as well too, and I think that like
Those
lended
close
itself
up shots were
to the
beautiful.
scene, right? Like how
Yeah.
impactful the scene was. But I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you too, after the scene ended, like were you like, "Ooh, can't wait for her to get back to Archie," or were you like, "Girl, take a minute, sis, you need like a break
100%
from
I
the
feel like she
guys."
needs to take a minute now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
but at the same time it always leads me to the question of like what are they doing with her character? Is she going to be this like lone shark for how long? Like how much longer is she going to just kind of like be out on her own doing like god knows
Do
what?
you
Like I don't
think
know. I don't
do you
know.
think this will sort of push her into now like finding her ability?
Maybe. I mean, I hope so if she's even getting one. Like we don't even know
Yeah.
for sure if she's even going to get one at this point. Like this
Yeah.
bitch has been gone for time.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Then it cuts to Kevin at school, and he has this like flash moment of all the times that he was like fucking people in the woods and like
I love that his
cruising,
cutscenes are like just scenes from like season 1. Like they
like
didn't even
season
bother giving him like any B-roll. They're like, "No, no, no, we'll just pull from season 1."
just pulled from season 1, but it went all the way up to like season 3 or season
Yeah, it
4 when he
did.
like tries to touch the hand, like
Yeah,
the leg of that guy in the
in the
sauna.
spot, yeah.
So he like anyway, he has this like traumatizing moment where he realizes like what he done did, and then of course or not even of course, it was a kind of a shock to me. Moose
Yeah.
walks in and he's like, oh hey, how's it going? Like you're driving around in the fog and you show up in
That's
the fucking lounge like
that's what
after
surprised me.
hours.
Yeah,
What
cuz
are
I
you
was
doing
like,
there?
no one's even on the roads right now. Like
Yeah,
why would you even come to the school? Like why is the
yeah.
school your first place to visit?
If Moose didn't like play the way that he did in the rest of the show, like the episode, I would be like, this man is sketchy. Like, watch out for him. He's probably working for the TBK. Like, who
Yeah.
fucking knows who this guy is? Because it is a random thing. Like, it's so weird that Moose across the board, and maybe it is a running joke in the writers' room where like they're like, let's just throw a Moose rack in there. Like, he just comes in at the most random times that you're just like, why is he even in this scene? Like, how did they even get to the point where they're like, okay, so Kevin's about to go to this dinner, but then we're gonna throw fucking Moose into this storyline? I'm like,
I
what?
don't like,
Why?
and ultimately like I did enjoy their scenes together.
Yeah,
I really like Moose. Like I've always loved him,
yeah,
but I
he's
don't
very
like
handsome.
how Kevin needs somebody else to sort of give him that
Sort himself out.
perspective and
Yeah,
sort himself out. Like,
yeah,
why do you need someone else to do that? Are you not an adult and are you not at this point capable enough to examine what you've done in your life and be like, my God, I fucked up. Like, I need
yeah,
to like figure this shit out.
yeah.
He needs
Agreed.
Moose, who like just comes in for like 10 minutes of the episode to tell him that. But Tony, your lifelong friend, telling you that, it doesn't like shake you to the core.
Exactly. Or Fangs, a person you were married to. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like, why did it have to take this person? And he doesn't even really do much past like,
is it because he references their trauma? Like, because Moose was like, that night was so scary for me. Remember,
yeah, but Kevin's been through so many other things. Yeah. Like, I don't know. If anything, like, why would you go back to Moose? Like, his dad basically tried to kill you. Like, I don't know. Like,
yeah. I felt like they tried to put it all in that moment though, when they were referring to with the was it the Gargoyle King?
Yeah, the Gargoyle King.
Yeah, they were like, that night was like the worst night of my life.
Yeah, I was like, but you also like went to a cult. Like, you also
like we never. I'm like, we never talked about it after that. Like, was that really what your trauma was like leading up to?
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway. So then he stays, he wants to chat for a little, like, we're just like, fucking fuck Kevin. So he wants to chat for a little while, and Kevin's like, sure, I have a few minutes. So then it cuts to Tony and Fangs talking. Shout
Here
out
comes
to
some great acting, guys. Great acting coming right up.
Tostito, like, there's a Tostito spawn. We have like the Tostitos bag being poured. She's like getting ready for the party, whatever. And then Tony and Fangs talk about where they're at with Anthony's future, like baby Anthony's future. And Fangs goes on to say that he wants him to be raised old school, and he wants him to be a fighter so he doesn't get killed by a ghoulie like one day. And Tony's like, okay, first and foremost, like, don't ever say that out loud. Like, don't embarrass yourself. That is terrible for you to say. And she was like, maybe that's not what we can do. Like, maybe we can try to focus on something else. Maybe let's not talk about the serpents at all. Like, maybe that's how we should go about this. And that's when the lights go out. So obviously they have a lot of shit to talk about. And I'll talk about my feelings around Tony and Fangs a little bit later, but they have an interesting their whole situation is very interesting right now. Then it cuts back to Kevin and Moose. And he just catches him up on like the stuff that's been going on. Like, he's going through custody battle and all this other stuff is happening. And Moose is like, oh, that sounds so hard. And then Moose catches him up on his life, and he's like, oh yeah, by the way, like, my dad, he was released like from prison, so now he's living with his dad. And he basically says that he's sorry for bailing on him when that whole thing happened. And then he kisses him. And then as he's kissing him, Kevin's like, hold on, wait 1 second. I need to cancel on someone. Or he's like, I need to message someone. And then he ends up canceling on Fangs and Tony. Really quickly, for our Riverdale like wizards who know everything about like every scene and everything that happens, the last time we saw Moose, was he not like hooking up with Fangs? Like, wasn't there a moment where he comes
like,
back into town and he had long hair? Yeah. And like Kevin walks in on them like hanging out and like doing stuff. So like, this isn't the first time that they haven't seen each other since that moment.
Yeah. I think so, they like, forget what they write in their own shows.
They're like, okay. Like, sure. That's exactly how I feel. I'm like, okay, I guess you guys totally forgot that he already came back once. Like, you already used this opportunity to fucking talk to him about it. So then it cuts to Tony and Fangs, and Fangs gets pissed at Kevin. He's like, wow, of course he canceled on us. He bailed on our marriage. He bailed on us as a family. Like, screw this guy. And he's like, let me just go and deal with this guy right now by myself. And she tells him like not to leave. She's like, don't leave. I need you here. Like Anthony needs you here. And they kiss. Pause for how I feel about Tony and Fangs currently. Do you feel like there's any chemistry at this point in time?
I feel like there's negative chemistry.
Like negative chemistry.
Negative chemistry. Yeah. And I feel like his acting is so bad. And I'm not the only one that said it this week. He overacts and it ruins the scene for me. It does. Like, he overacted the scene, and I'm like, okay, I don't even believe you anymore. Like, I don't even like take you seriously. Like, you're going off. And then it cuts like 20 face and she's like because he's like popping off for like no reason. And I don't know, it's just like, I get what their story is right now. Like, I don't mind it as much, but like, I just feel like, yeah, there's no chemistry at all. Like, I don't see that. I don't feel it.
Yeah.
No.
Which is unfortunate because I'm like, Toni should have someone to anchor herself to, like, just like she had
She anchors herself.
With Cheryl. I know she anchors herself. She don't need no man. She don't need no woman. But when you see them together, I'm like, why are you even here? Like, what do you even see in this guy? This like dumb gang
No,
member?
you're
Like,
right. You're right.
I
And
like
last week, remember was it last week where he called her out? He's like, "Well, you're dancing now,
yeah,
and like with
yeah,
a
yeah,
baby
yeah.
at home. Like, bitch, like you have like
Get
a
out of
house full
here.
of guns. Like, check yourself."
He's like a baby himself. Like, get out of here. So I don't know. At this point in time, I think there was a time where I felt a connection between them, but now it's gone to me. Like, I look
And
at them
maybe-
and I'm like, I don't see that.
Maybe they
with
want
them
us
at
to feel
all.
that too at this point.
Maybe. Because we're waiting for CHONI to come
I mean,
back.
look, if they kept any ship apart, I think CHONI would win that award. Like, they don't even talk about them anymore. They don't even have scenes together. Like, they don't even come in contact with each other. Like, they are keeping them apart. Like,
so that reunion is gonna be fucking
it's gonna be wet and heavy.
Oh, wet and heavy. So then it cuts to Pop's diner, and Tabitha's on the radio. She's trying to get a signal, and she hears something.
What are they getting a signal for? Like, just to warn people?
I guess so. Like, I think he's like, yeah, go on the radio and see if you can like help anybody out who needs help.
Also,
like,
I thought they
like,
closed the Lonely Highway, which is what Moose said last scene.
Right. So I don't know. I don't know. There's so many inconsistencies in the writing.
Moose was like,
this.
I lost my job after they cut the Lonely Highway down. I was like, is there only one highway in the world? Like, why can't you find another job on another highway?
If you couldn't drive on the Lonely Highway, then you couldn't drive.
Yeah.
At all. Like,
and then Tabitha's like, I'm contacting people on the Lonely Highway. And I was like, I thought Moose just said it was closed down. Is he lying? Did he just get fired and he's making that as an excuse?
He is the TVK. I'm telling you, he's sketchy.
Stop.
Can you imagine? That'd be funny. So anyway, Pop's diner. I mean, it's
oh my god, now I'm like really thinking about it.
Like, can you imagine if that's the case? And also, I wouldn't put it past like Kevin getting involved with the fucking TV.
Honestly,
such a fucking mess. So anyway, she hears something and then she gets worried about Jughead, but he's actually fine. He comes back in. He's like, "Oh, I got the gas," and then they turn on the generator. Pops is back on. Everybody's happy. Cuts to Kevin and Moose. And after sexy times, he's like, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'm just going to wash up. And so he goes to wash up. And the Gargoyle King is like behind him in the bathroom. And then he wakes up and it's just a dream. He passed out after sex, just like every man in the world.
Even Moose said that. He was like, you fell asleep after that.
He's like, after we hooked up, you just passed the fuck out. You wasteman of a man.
So funny.
And so Moose goes over and he holds him. And it was a cute moment. And I want to root for them, but I hate Kevin so much that I don't care. Like, that's my problem with it at this point.
I will say my favorite Kevin scenes were always with Moose. They were always my favorite.
They have a good chemistry.
They do. And I think the stories that they talked about when they were together were like really, really cute, real scenes and stories. Yeah. But they were very short-lived. Like, they never really like went all the way, like, or they cut them short. It was just like an episode. Yeah. And then Moose like left the show. I think right when he was starting to get really good, he ended up leaving the show because I think he got another show, the actor.
And then it got canceled or something.
And then it got canceled. But yeah, it's funny that you said that because I do feel like they were my favorite together.
Yeah.
But yeah.
They just have I just feel like Kevin brings a good thing out of Moose, and Moose does the same for Kevin.
Yeah, agreed.
Like, I like him more. I liked him with Fangs too. Don't get me wrong, but it feels like it's been so long since we didn't get to see that relationship that I don't really have the same feelings about him and Fangs. And Fangs is probably never gonna, like, it's never gonna happen between.
Yeah, I wasn't crazy about the Kevin and Fangs relationship.
I think it's because when we came through the time jump, they were already married. They were gonna have a baby. Like, everything kind of got to a point where like we didn't really get a chance to see them grow. Whereas with Moose and Kevin, like, you saw them as high school students falling in love and like all that stuff, like whatever, being a closet case and all that was a part of their story. So we want to root for them. Yeah. Anyway, cuts to Cheryl calling her mom for dinner, and she finds her mom in the room with the doll, the fucking Abigail doll. And she like calls her out. She was like, of course you're here for something nefarious. Like you're here to do something evil.
Yeah.
And she gets so pissed, she just fucking whacks her over the head with a fucking candlestick. I was like, what is she about to do? She like rips the candle off. She like fucking whacks her. So then she wakes up and she's like tied to the table. And Cheryl is like slowly raising her body temperature because she's obviously a pyrokinetic now.
Yeah.
And she's like,
show off.
Yeah. And then Penelope's like, what are you doing? And she was like, I'm a pyrokinetic now. I can like basically burn you to death. Like you're evil. And Cheryl's about to burn her. And then Penelope's like, no, wait. I have something for you. I have these letters from Heather. Like, you remember Heather? And she was like, yeah, I remember
Season
Heather.
3. Yeah.
She's like, you mean the person that you traumatized me about for my entire life? Yes, I remember her. So then
what did you feel about that? Like that whole thing, like bringing that up again?
The Heather storyline?
Yeah.
It made me question, like, who is Heather? Are we going to meet Heather? Like, I want to know who Heather is now. Like, they keep talking about it. And I like the way that this scene ended. Like, obviously, like, later with her and, like, asking for forgiveness. But at this point, we haven't met this person. And I'm like, of all the peoples, like the Minervas and all these like random people that have come in and out of Cheryl's life, I'm surprised that Heather hasn't like made her way onto the show.
But I don't think we have to see Heather. I think all we have to know is like how much trauma that relationship like and the dealing of her mom, like it brought her. So I don't necessarily need to see Heather. It's just like, I think that's the thing that like messed up Cheryl the most, probably with her mom.
Yeah. You know, for sure. That's a good point. I just feel like when it's an unnamed random person, everyone's just like, what do they sound like? Who are they? How are they? I just
don't think it's all tied to Heather. Like, I think their mother and daughter trauma and dynamic is so much bigger than just one person. Like, you lost your son, you lost your brother, like in a horrific way. Like, there's so many more traumatic points in their lives that they could be pulling from. Like, that's just like one of them, I feel like, but they're like focusing on that for some reason. So I don't know, maybe we are gonna see Heather. Like, I don't know,
we'll see. So then it cuts back to Pop's diner, and she's got like the speaker working, the radio working. She's calling out people in the fog. She's like, yes, lit. It doesn't really like amount to anything. Like, nobody comes through the door. Like, she just, I guess it's just to show that like Pop's diner is like, we want another day.
Always lit.
Like, we're always lit. Yeah. We're always the chocolate shop. So then finally it cuts back to Cheryl, and she's reading all these letters in bed, and she's like bawling her eyes out. Her mom comes in and she's like, why did you hate me so much? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, why did you do this to me? And Penelope kind of admits that she was homophobic because she might be like a lesbian herself.
Yeah, I didn't understand like what she alluded to.
I think she said that without saying it out loud.
I wish this scene had so much more. I liked what they did with it, but something that is this deep and messed up needed like 10 minutes of dialogue. Like
a little bit more.
More. Like, this is like the core of Cheryl's like pain as a character and trauma. Like, if this is truly Penelope who's changed and is like being like remorseful, I wanted more from her.
Yeah, that's fair. I do feel like we got to the point that we needed to get to, but you're right. Like, I feel like it needed to keep moving a little bit. Like, I wanted to hear more of that dialogue.
I would have loved if, like, because you know how she talks, right? Like, Penelope's like, child, shall never.
Yes.
I almost wanted a moment where she was like, it like ended and she was like, Cheryl, I'm so sorry. Like, I was not the like, you know, like, it's almost like that facade of a person that she's created over the years, like, fizzled. And she was like, I just want to be your mom. I'm so sorry. I did such a bad job. Like, I would have loved to see that character come through. Yeah. And she's like, this is just my way of coping with what I've done. I've created this sort of like, you know, fantastical persona, you know, a bit more. I wanted a bit more. If this is truly that moment that we're gonna get,
and maybe if she wasn't wearing a fucking nun's outfit, like, that would have been like, you know, if she took off her habit or something and like really got down on her knees as her mother, and not as much as like, I'm trying to repent for my sins, so like, I'm here for your forgiveness. So that is what she says. She's like, I'm here for your forgiveness, please forgive me. And Cheryl's just sitting there being like, damn, thanks a lot for your like traumatizing me all this time. But like, yeah, her scene ends. We don't really hear anything about like what happens to Penelope. Do you want to see Penelope back on the show full time? Like, what are you hoping for at this point for her?
I mean,
or is this like the end?
I don't know, like if we're gonna get more scenes with her and Cheryl, like I'm down.
Yeah.
But I just don't feel like they're taking Penelope there.
Yeah.
They can't get her to that level of like that emotion that I want to see with mother and daughter. Yeah.
I think at the same time too, I think like we've come to kind of love how psycho Penelope had gotten over the years, and like her crazy like antics, the things that she got up to. So seeing her this way, I'm like, I wish I saw this before, you know, like, I wish I saw a bit of this beforehand. So like we could like see her have this moment with Cheryl. Okay, Cheryl's not her problem, but she's also still like got her own issues. Like she still wants to be a killer. She still wants to do all those silly things.
I still feel like we could have, and maybe like it lends to the idea that like she could be schizophrenic. She could be like you know, like a bipolar personality where like she has moments of like at the highs and the lows where like in the lows she's like, I'm so sorry, Cheryl. Like she her voice changes, her clothes change, like the way she dresses, and then boom, you know, a couple weeks later something happens and she's on that high again of that bipolar, and like she's like freaking this crazy nun. Like
I would have loved to see them delving into that. Would have been really cool.
That's
to
mental
touch
illness.
on mental illness
and that's
way.
real shit, and I think that comes from real trauma that could lend itself to like all the crazy shit that she's done over the years. But there's another layer and a facade to that person that really does love her daughter, and like
that's a good point.
It's just not there consistently, you know.
Right, for sure.
That would have been a sick storyline.
Yeah, not gonna lie, that sounds really good.
You're like, damn.
I'm like, damn, cool. Yeah, I would have done that too. So it's the next morning, and this is when Kevin calls Fangs, and Kevin's like, yeah, I'm open to like having the conversation with you. I'm open to joint custody. And Fangs kind of snaps on him. He's like, oh, sounds good. You're okay with having a dinner with us? You're open to joint custody? And he's like, well, now I don't want to be half a dad. I want to have only my son. I want him to be raised with an integrity. He does say something that I love. It's like one of my favorite lines that he's ever said ever. He says, I want my son to be raised with an integrity that I'm not sure that you possess.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I know, I love that.
Like, work. Yeah. Finally, someone's like shoving it right back in Kevin's face because he's out here acting as if like he's like this scorned boy. Yeah. Like, get over yourself.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I'll see you in court. Until then, watch your back. So two things. One, I will say good job for Fangs for finally like standing up to Kevin and being like, go fuck yourself. You like basically ruined our lives. But this is obviously going to put another wedge between Fangs and Tony. Yeah. No, like because Tony's like, don't do those things. Like literally don't do anything that you just did.
Yeah, he's going to like an extreme point almost.
And I guess this is the part where we have to like look at Fangs as a character and see him as like someone who like is just irrational. He doesn't really think things through. Like he's a bit of a dope that way. But yeah, that's what he ends up doing in the scene. Then it cuts to Veronica and she's staring at the Hiram portrait, and then she like this bitch can't even like find some paper herself. She has to like press a button and be like, hi, hello, can you come into my office? I need to get some paper and some tape. I need to do something right now. Bye. And she just like clicks another button.
Like
every scene we have, she's like beckoning someone over. Yeah. Like go put some work in. Like go do it yourself. Like I would love to see her like actually like make an effort. Then act like, you know, like she still has this air of like I am the shit.
I mean, that's Veronica, right?
And
like
I guess
Princess
that's Veronica. But at the same time, I'm also just like I would have loved to see her like, because at this point she is so far removed from everyone else who's like real in Riverdale. I don't know if you want to say like real, but like they're rooted in like the hometowniness, and she's like so city girl that like you really haven't changed. Like you're all city now. Yeah. Like you don't do things on your own anymore. Like you're just kind of like sitting in your ivory tower and like doing things on your own.
What did she say though? She said something. She's like, I need to wrap something up.
Yeah, I gotta wrap something up.
Okay.
I'm like, literally, you gotta wrap something up. Like,
yeah,
wow,
she needs to. She needs scissors and some paper.
Yeah. She's like, I have a present. Then it cuts to Pop's Diner, and Alice announces that Percival is the new mayor of the town. This is when you lost me. Riverdale, I know we go through some wild, wild shit, but making Percival the mayor overnight, like how in the fucking world, in what reality?
And how can they just cut Tabby out of that thing?
There's no, like, this would have never happened. Like, this is not rooted in reality. And I know we're talking about a show that now has superpowers,
that's
and
true,
mind reading and time travel, but like there is no way that we were presented with this to be like, yeah, he is now the mayor. Every single time he goes on this fucking talk show, he's doing something fucking nuts. Like, and now it's like to the point of like, now he's the mayor. Like, that's when I was like, okay, like I don't know if I can get into that shit, but they're obviously trying to like wrap his shit up quick. So fine, he's the mayor. I'll get over it by next week. But Tabitha, so Tabitha has a really nice moment with Jughead, and we get a lot of information about this. So turns out she was like, okay, I was lying about what happened with the bomb, and I did actually try to stop it. And she went back like 1,300 times. But because Jughead's and she's like, you got your hearing back, but every single time ended in an apocalypse. And she was like, your power is the most threatening to Percival's because it's the closest to his, because he can read minds and he can like control people's minds just like you can read minds. So I thought that was kind of cool because I feel like, you know, when you look at this show in general, Jughead is kind of rooted in like the story of the story. You know what I mean? Like, he is Riverdale. He is. But I thought
they were amping up Tabby to be that person. Because remember, like in every iteration of the thing, he was like against her.
Right, but I don't know. I guess like in other I guess when she was able to like see anything past that, it was always like he was more important, which I guess makes sense because it's Jughead. And so he says like, or she says that when he overheard her saying something in her head, she was actually talking about him, losing him. And it turns out that Jughead dies in basically every single scenario. And the only time that they actually win, which is only 2 times, he dies like winning the battle.
She said what 1,834 times she went back. And only 2 times he survived.
No, 2 times they won, but both times he died.
Yeah, true. Okay,
so he was like, she was
they
like,
won,
she was like, your death is fixed. Like, it feels like your death is fixed. But he has a really cute moment where he's like,
girl,
this show tried to kill
I've been
me
on this
off.
show way too long.
He's like, everybody try to kill me every single time.
Exactly.
Every single season. He's like, this is not my first rodeo, girl.
And then I got like confident. I was like, okay, like he'll be fine.
Like, true. But then I was like, also in like season 6, like, is this his opportunity to be like, I'm out? Like, are we finally
like I'm saying, I think someone needs to die this season. I am down for that. It just can't be Betty, Archie, Veronica. I guess I'm okay with Jughead.
I feel like I'll be sad if Jughead dies, but I feel like
I would be sad
if he dies. It'll be like the chapter is closed on him and his story, and I feel like we got enough from him, and I think that anyway. I think I'd be okay. I'd be sad, but I think I'd be okay. But I'd be devastated.
Do you think somehow, like, whatever she's seeing is like the Riverdale version? So like maybe she's seeing him die, but it's like his Riverdale version dying.
Right. I don't know. And I also want to know, because she says like, oh, I went 1,300, like 1,800 times back. I'm like, but what did you see? Like, what is gonna play out that you can fix? Like, you just kept going back and like you didn't find a solution. Like, how can you make him survive in those 2 times that he doesn't
because she doesn't say like how he dies or anything.
Or like, what is this epic battle gonna even look like? We don't even really know. Like, she's not giving us any details.
Like, is it like a pie eating contest? Is it like a milkshake contest?
Like, is it literally like a nuclear bomb goes off on fucking Riverdale? Like, we don't know. And he does say something cute at the end. He's like, just don't give up hope on me because that would kill me. I'm like, okay, we won't give up on you. It would kill you. And then our final scene is at the Andrews residence. It's the next day, so obviously Archie and Betty have gone to the store to get a pregnancy test, and it cuts. And
so I love this scene because like, yeah, and so she's like timing it like perfectly, like when her timer like goes off.
Yeah.
And then he's like, he was just so cute, man. Like he was
a real,
just like
such a supportive dad.
I don't know what it is. Like again, I'm not all like I did love Varchie a lot too. There's just something cute about KJ when he's with Lily. There's a different dynamic, and I feel like his chemistry is more like I see him more there than I was seeing him more there with like Veronica. I don't know how to explain it.
It's just a different energy because like
it's like a different energy. Yeah.
Yeah. When you see him with Betty, you're like, oh yeah, of course he wants to have a baby with her. But when you look at her and Veronica, she's like, no, I'm too busy. I'm working. Like,
well,
I don't even see them having a family. Like, what does that even look like?
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's just something different about KJ and then Archie when he's in a scene with Lily and Betty. And in this scene, he's so freaking cute. He's like, whatever happens, we're going to be fine. Like, I'm going to be here for you.
Yeah.
Like, this is it. It's us. I was like, oh my God.
But also we have to remember that KJ became a father himself probably around the same time.
Yes. And I feel like
he was bringing that energy
to
like
totally
being an expecting father. So
totally.
I'm just like, oh, of course he's like happy and excited.
Yeah. Totally.
Like, him and his girl. So like,
and the way they sort of do it is that like the test like comes up and the camera's on this side of it, and then we see them both look at the test,
but like you don't really know what the reaction is.
So
like,
what do you think it is?
I think that they're pregnant. I hope that they're pregnant at this point. Like, why bring us that storyline? Because then it's gonna be like, oh, I guess it didn't work. Are we gonna try now? Like, then they're gonna go through the whole conversation about trying, which I guess they could do, but like there's a lot of other shit going on right now this season. I don't know if like them trying to have a baby is gonna be the thing that we need to see.
Yeah.
I'd love to just have them pregnant.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, of course it fucking cuts. I'm like, can we just get the answer? Can we just get the fucking answer?
No, I did like the cliffhanger.
They don't usually
excited
leave us
me
on like this much of a cliffhanger.
I know.
Like, something like this is something that you've seen in a Netflix show because then you watch the next episode.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh.
No, I did like it. I think they're pregnant.
Yeah.
I think just like when you look at the entire series as a whole and like just where they're heading and if they're almost done and like a Betty and an Archie baby, that's like the whole point of this like next generation.
Like, the next step,
you know, like you can't get any more like iconic. Like they're having a baby. It's their child's literally gonna be like the next generation of this town.
Yeah.
So I'd be down for it. Archie, yeah.
I'm excited.
I think the Varchie shippers are.
They're no longer.
Yeah,
like, it's
they're
over
like,
for them.
Yeah, I feel bad a little bit.
Y'all lost this one. I'm so sorry. R.I.P. So one question I did have, and maybe this is just me being skeptical, I was like, what if the girl that Betty interviews, who we never get to see, is actually Heather, and she comes back and she's like brainwashed by the TBK?
I read this and I was like, boy, what? I mean, look, it's Riverdale. Anything can happen.
I'm just trying to make connections.
I just don't know like how that would connect. You know what I mean? Like, why would she be also that girl?
Because then Cheryl's kind of in the mix and she's gonna feel conflicted about it. But then like we don't really know who this mystery girl is. Why did they bring it up? Like, what was the whole, like, I guess I'm just really annoyed about the fact that we never really find out why this girl escaped. And we don't
I know it is a weird thing. Maybe we'll see it next episode. Like maybe she'll have that continuation. Because like the fog came, the girl couldn't come maybe
she couldn't come through. They made it sound like she was in the office.
Yeah,
already.
I know.
Like,
she's like outside waiting.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into our recap roundups.
Let's
recap roundups.
Best moment. My best moment is pretty much your best moment, which is the veggie scene.
Yes.
But then I'll let you talk about it more. But I will also say I think the whole episode was a best moment for me because it was such a change of pace.
Yeah.
And like we got to like slow down and pause and have these really amazing conversations with these characters that we've been waiting for a long time. Yeah. Mostly veggie. They needed to have this conversation.
Yes.
So I just think, and like to your point, I think the episode was beautifully written. I don't know which writer wrote this episode, but it was so good. The writing was really, really good. good. So
writing was fantastic. So yeah, my best moment was definitely the Reggie. Like as soon as I saw it, I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen the rest of this episode, but this is taking it for me. Yeah. So Veronica and Reggie in the scene, it was so well done. The makeup and the breakup and all of it, all the things that we already talked about, so good, so well done.
WTF moment. WTF moment was the ending with Jughead and Tabitha when she was like, "You're dead."
You're dead.
You're gonna die.
You're gonna die.
And she's like, I tried to fix it, but I couldn't.
No.
I was like, oh my god. But yeah. And then also Moose showing up because it was so random.
Yeah.
I'm like, we haven't had Moose in like years. Like what? And it's a fog. How did he even get there?
Yeah.
So it was just random.
How did you even show up?
Again, I think they just use it as a tool to sort of like shake Kevin a little bit and be like, what it's, who am I really?
Yeah.
But why does he need someone to do that for him? Why can't he figure that out on his own?
He needs to get his shit together on his own.
Yeah.
Sure. I will say really quickly, we talk about how like good the writing was this episode. There's this one thing that Tabitha says, and I'm like, why did you say that if that's not what happens? She talks about how she cannot leave Pops when she goes back in time. She's like, I have to like stay within spitting distance of Pops. So how did she stop the bomb multiple times?
No, I think what she says is like when she time jumps, it's only like close to Pops.
Oh.
So I think then she can like walk around.
She
can't like time jump like to Archie's house.
To Archie's house, and like stop the bomb.
That's just what I took from it.
Just to run over there from Pops.
Yeah, I mean it's a small town. Like it ain't a big deal, girl.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Just park your bike at Pops and take the bike. It's not a big deal.
Take a moped. Just like roll your way down there. My WTF moment is the cliffhanger with Barchie, the baby results. I wanted to know, are you pregnant? Yes or no? I was like, what the fuck? I gotta wait a whole fucking week now?
Yeah.
Damn it.
MVP is gonna be Reggie. Because I think he just played such in that conversation, he kind of steered the ship. He was so honest and so open and like vulnerable and like just like serving Veronica like the real, and he wasn't like taking anything that she was saying. She was like, okay, but if we go, and he's like, no, he's like, I'm still not your number one. And so like I said, to have a secondary character choose their own path and like have that and sort of push her, right? You don't always see that. So I love that he was able to do that, and he was like, I'm out, and he left. So like, I really, really, MVP for me.
No, that's a really good point. MVP, Reggie. My MVP is gonna go to Tabitha. Because I thought it was just really cute that she tried to go back 1,800 times and like save the world and save him, and it just like didn't work out.
It sounds like, I mean, I didn't want to choose her again because I feel like I keep choosing her.
She's
and a lot of our roundups from our listeners are Tabs. Of course, Tabitha. It's Tabs. Like she's been amazing. But other than her, I would say like Reggie for sure.
LVP. Who's your LVP?
LVP. This was really hard because I didn't want to give to Kevin. He did have a little bit of like good moments this episode. I mean, Alice is just straight up like shook. She is not herself. So I'm not even gonna choose her. I'm gonna say the TBK because he's kind of like MIA. Like no one really cares about him right now. Where has he been? He's not as scary as he like used to seem.
He's
and
not Oogie Spooky.
He's just like the fog was scarier than the TBK. Like what are you doing?
What are you doing? Where are you? Betty's back in town. Like what's happening? So, and to that point, I wonder if like this mystery girl that we're probably never gonna see is gonna play a part.
Can't wait to see this girl.
I can't wait to see because I feel like maybe she's like
there's something
tattle on her and be like, oh, Betty, I was just a victim, but like he's actually like trained her to
here's
like
the
get
thing,
Betty
right?
back.
This part kills me because Betty thinks she's so smart. She's like, I literally traveled the world and I lost him in like Ohio and like he's there. Bitch, he knows where you live. He can come back to your hometown.
He will literally come back to you.
You went back to your hometown. So like you went to like Nebraska and like are hiding in some of the desert. Like you went back to your hometown and you're living in your old house. Like
what
you're very easy to track down.
Is got him to leave and then stay there and then killed him and then come back.
Like,
maybe don't come back to town.
Like she acts like as if her plan is like bulletproof. Like
she's like, nailed it. I did
nailed it. I lost him there. I came back here.
She's like, even though I cannot see him and he's not invulnerable to me. Cool, thanks. My LVP is gonna go to Fangs because I feel like this was the final time that I'm just like, okay, this character I think is gonna be like waste. Like he's just gonna be a dum-dum and Tony is gonna just break up with him and that's gonna be the end of Fangs. And I kind of feel bad because I feel like it could have been an interesting way to go about it. He has a lot of things to say that make very valid points. The fact that Kevin basically broke up their marriage, all these other things that happened. I thought that was really interesting. But the fact that Fangs is like at his core, this gang member, like suddenly he's like the serpent of all serpents. And I'm like, relax.
He got like excited.
You were like a fucking like D-list character and now you're like up in the front and you're like, I want to be a serpent and my kid's gonna be a serpent. I'm like, relax, like chill.
Yeah.
Like let's talk about your trauma. Like maybe we should talk about some cool things with you too.
Pull
like,
up a chair.
You should have a good conversation, but they don't want to give him that, so I'm just like, bummer.
The best line.
Who was your best line?
My best line is between Veronica and Reggie, and I'll just sort of like mix the two. And he says, "It's not just on you, Ronnie. It's on the both of us. Sometimes I've wondered if the reason we're such a good match, we're actually bad in ways that are simpatico. That's why we gotta break up the screwed up toxic cycle." And then he says, "Fog notwithstanding, I'm starting to see things crystal clear. Finally."
Yeah.
I was like, damn. It was just like a really good back and forth, well-written scene.
Yes.
And both actors, I think they took it there. Like I believed every word. So it was really well done.
Loved it. That was gonna be mine until I saw yours. I was like, okay, you're gonna talk about that? Okay. Mine's gonna be when Fang says, I want my son to be raised with an integrity that I'm not sure you possess, because I was like, snap.
Because that's the perfect word for Kevin. No integrity.
No integrity.
That's the perfect word.
I was trying to find the word. We just keep calling him a waste man, but that's literally what it is. He has no integrity.
Yeah.
So I love that he finally said it, and we finally heard a character say that he's like shit. So I was happy about that. Let's get into our listener roundups because we got a lot.
Do it.
And I saw on Twitter that like people were giving us like memes and images.
Yeah,
and
like
scenes.
video clips. I'm like, okay.
Snapped on all this. I love you all.
Taking the roundups to the next level. I love it.
So amazing.
Okay, so we have at CHONI5 on it, MVP, Tony for standing up to Kevin, and Tabitha because I love them, LVP, Fangs because he's a total loser, and the actor cannot act. See, I'm not the only one.
So mean.
Also, the writers for always trying to redeem abusers. Why are they trying to redeem Penelope? She's literally homophobic and abusive. Also, I literally forgot that Veronica existed. Like, who even is she? WTF moment, Fangs potentially ruining the custody battle. Best line, Veronica, where she's talking to Reggie about something. I don't know. I really wasn't paying attention.
She's like, it was great, but I don't remember it. I don't remember anything. Thanks for being real. At Barchie 2020 says, best moment, Betty told Archie about TBK finally, and Archie told her he's all in and he's there for her. Barchie got closer, a scene that we have been waiting for a long time. Very, very true. MVP, Tabitha, she went back to time just to save Jughead. At WTF moment, Penelope becoming a nun. LVP, Kevin, Alice, and Percival. So
trio.
All the trio. Holy Trinity.
Yeah. At Ciara and Jay, best moment, all the Barchie. They are doing everything I need right now. They are so cute. Also, the phone call on the radio, the same call that saved Barchie from the bomb. I'm loving the blend between Vale and Dale. Yes, I wanted to bring this up to you and I totally forgot until now. I didn't realize that connection. I'm so bad with the connections.
It's hard to catch them sometimes.
I know.
But yeah.
So the phone call, I'm assuming the phone call, she means the one that Tabitha, the radio.
Like heard. So like, yeah, it's like something that
so she's
heard.
Hearing the
like,
Vale phone call.
So interesting.
I want to play that back again. Anyways, best moment 2.
Double
reunion. We've not been having a good gay rep lately, and it's nice to see gays being happy together. I hope we see more Moose. I love him.
Gays. Gay representation.
WTF moment, Penelope becoming a nun. What has this woman not done? Also, she's a full-on serial killer, but I've learned to not apply logic to this show. That's smart. MVP, Tabitha, sis jumped through 1834 timelines to save Jughead Jones, who, shocker, is gonna die again. She's doing the most and I'm loving it. Also Moose, he's so fine and I loved seeing him again. Finally Kevin doing something.
Yeah. Yes to all of that. At Barchie's origin, best moment, Archie telling Betty he's all in and being the most supportive partner ever. WTF moment, Veronica telling Reggie she'd be living in NYC if she had her way. The reality is we're all someone's consolation prize. Like Veronica. Wow, you idiots. Like, why did you do that?
At Barchie, thus won. We got a lot of Barchie roundups this week. Best moment, Archie reassuring Betty he's all in no matter the outcome of the pregnancy test. Also, Reggie calling out on V's shit. MVP, Archie, LVP, Alice, Kevin, Fangs, and Veronica. WTF, Penelope, a nun, also very bored of that storyline. Cheryl needs a story that doesn't involve her mom.
So I feel like we're closing up that chapter.
Yeah, I would agree with it. I just wanted a longer, deeper conversation to round it off. And really, then Penelope can go back to the Himalayas. Like, I'm down for that. That's totally fine. On Instagram, we got Marie Gerritsen. I think her WTF is Kevin had some screen time.
Oh. Like,
he does get screen time. It's just never impressive.
It's never good.
It's and then she also says MVP, Barchie, LVP, Fangs. Her best line is fog notwithstanding, I am starting to see things crystal clear finally. Mm-hmm. That will probably go down as one of the best Reggie lines his character ever had. Like, it was really good.
I can see clearly now.
Yeah. And that's it for the roundups.
That's it. Wow. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
We love you. And I would like to take this time to thank some other people we love, our patrons of the episode, our Rewinder Squad, White and Nicole and Cliff, our Lit Rewinders, Tina Ann, Soleil, and Kate, and our Mommy Rewinders, Becca, Sarah, Tamala, and Grace.
Thank you, guys. If you'd like to join our Patreon family, check us out at patreon.com/recap_rewind.
And also make sure you're checking us out on all of our socials, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. You can also find us on Google Podcasts, Spotify, and iTunes. Like, subscribe, follow, review, and comment to stay engaged with us at Recap Rewind. Thanks for listening.
Bye.